The theme of mother and child has been explored countless of times throughout art history and is often charged with strong emotions. Through this motif, the idea of motherhood itself has been canonized, elevated, and idealized. Only through observing this motif's role throughout history are we able to fully grasp its significance, both in art and beyond. Predating the traditional understanding of Madonna and child that we are familiar with today, ancient art saw various representations of women, with examples dating back to the Paleolithic era, some 40,000 years ago. Figures such as the Venus of Willendorf and the mother goddess of Çatalhöyük are believed to stress the importance of artistic creativity, fecundity, and the admiration of the female body and spirit. This ancient symbolism never lost its significance, but rather was transformed, specifically through Christian art, and the creative power of fertility of the mother goddesses transitioned into an idealized motherhood, illustrated through the Madonna and child motif. Originally stemming from biblical devotional beliefs, religious symbolism in art can be traced back as far as the Roman times. The Roman Catacomb of Priscilla, with its age-old walls, features one of the oldest depictions of Madonna and child, dating back to the 2nd century AD. From then, the motif, deemed gentle, pretty, and sweet, only increased in popularity, with artistic movements exploring variations of the theme for centuries to come. Following their fresco debut, the Madonna and child motif materialized as encaustic paintings, now realized by Byzantine artists as elegant queens of the universe on flat picture planes and holding miniature adults on wooden panels. Later, 15th century artists would move away from Byzantine approaches and lean towards what they considered to be true observations of the world, as seen in Giotto's Madonna Enthroned. Here, the illusion of three-dimensional space as well as more realistic human proportions and gestures are prevalent. During the Renaissance, artists inspired by classical Greek art began to study anatomy and proportion and added such qualities to the representations of Madonna and child, which thus became a high point of Renaissance art. Such works by Jan van Eyck and Leonardo da Vinci realized a shift from ceremonial and solemn figures to beautiful facial expressions, landscapes, and appealing and playing children. This iconography remained popular throughout the neoclassical period as well, a movement further inspired by classical art's sense of balance and focus on the human figure. The Madonna and child motif remained popular even beyond the end of the 19th century, and the subject matter never really fell out of fashion, but instead, modern and contemporary artists adopted and adapted the concept and treated the now called mother and child theme as an updated version of the Madonna and child. Modern artists like Mary Cassatt saw artistic imagery like Madonna and child as filled with internal life, but free from the given external realities, and therefore sought to update the motif by representing the relationship between a parent and child as a significant part of both daily and social life, as can be seen in her Mother and Child, The Oval Mirror. Here, the mother's look of adoration and embrace of her child is a distinct contrast from the somewhat sterile and stiff Madonna and child art historical works. The mother's clothes and the scenery of the painting give a sense of familiarity of modern familial relationships, but also gives an ode to the past, with the son's contrapposto stance and the oval mirror that frames the two like a halo. Moving towards contemporary times, artists like Marc Chagall, Salvador Dali, Keith Haring, and Alan D'Arcangelo followed in Cassatt's footsteps and continued to reimagine the motif. Here, at the Art and History Museums of Maitland, the exploration of this motif continues, with numerous adaptations rendered by Florida-based artists in our exhibition, Love and Compassion, Images of Mother and Child. Let's explore. This beautiful painting was done by the Art Center founder, Jules Andre Smith. Smith himself was deeply religious and believed that creative art was at its best inspired and a gift from God. With this in mind, he built our beautiful altar chapel on our campus, as well as numerous religious imagery and paintings, such as this one. In this work, we can see ties to early Byzantine traditions, as we talked about earlier in the video, with a Madonna, Queen of the Universe, holding an adult-like child in a garden setting in a flat picture plane. But like other contemporary artists, Andre decided to put his own spin onto things, such as in this work over here, which is also a beautiful Madonna and child imagery. But instead we can see that there's this really unique bob haircut on the mother, which is more aligned to the time period that Andre had made this versus the tradition that he was taking this imagery from. This series of works is by artist and A&H staff member Taylor Bow. Through her work, Battle considers the experiences of past generations of women in her family and her relationship to them. Through portraiture, Battle seeks to memorialize these women to avoid their erasure. In this series, titled Conveyor, Battle showcases 4 works, all of which are representations of her grandmother holding her mother as a child. The meaning of the title Conveyor is described by Battle as being twofold. The first being a literal description of a conveyor, or a person who makes an idea or feeling known to someone else. In these works, Battle used information conveyed to her to abstract the figures repeatedly by pulling details from family photographs and stories. The second reasoning is through the description of a conveyor belt, which moves and alters repeatedly. To Battle, this represents the reconstructive nature of memory, and through creating these pieces, she seeks an honest representation of her understanding of who these women were and are, both in her personal life and the physical world around us. Jessica Caldas is a Puerto Rican-American, Florida and Georgia-based artist whose work deals with connecting personal and community narratives to larger themes and social issues. In her series of works exhibited in our gallery, Caldas aims to capture the strangeness of being a parent and child. In this work, Caldas shows that the relationship between mother and child is not so simple. There is an intense, all-consuming passion and care that is often enough to erase the mother herself, while also being an irresistible drive. In this piece, the intensity of this all-consuming relationship is felt and seen with the mother attempting to soothe her flustered child. The mother's face is masked by darkness, which relates back to the erasure that some mothers feel and experience, but also can be an ode to the all-consuming nature of being a mother. There is a beauty and a struggle in these works that illustrate what it is to be a parent. This photographic print is by Tampa-based artist Renato Rampolla. As a son of artist Frank Rampolla, he was highly influenced by his father's artwork and creative spirit. Sadly, his father passed away when Renato was just 11 years old, and his mother took on the child-rearing and ended up being equally as influential in Renato's art through her passion for community outreach. With his multifaceted source of inspiration, Renato experiments with photography to not only create beautiful pictures, but also to bring awareness towards societal issues like homelessness. His critically acclaimed self-published book, Dignity No Matter What, displays a series of portraits of homeless people along with their stories. This work here is part of his introspection series, where he seeks to capture flash perceptions of emotion. You can truly feel the emotion coming from this piece as you gaze upon a homeless mother and child in an embrace. Here, Renato wanted to showcase that the bond between mother and child is beautiful, and while not always joyful in every moment, it is forever. The child here, even through tears, instinctively knows that her and her mother are safe from all dangers and loved unconditionally in a mother's arms. This beautiful painting is done by New Smyrna-based artist Maitland Smith. Smith was inspired to create this painting based on the trip that he had taken with his brother to Havana, Cuba for the very first time. In the midst of the bustling and movement of this city, Smith was drawn to this couple here, his mother and child, going about their busy day. Smith states that he was immediately reminded of times growing up with his mother, who always took care of him no matter how busy she was. This painting reminds us of the commonality of the mother and child motif, not solely found in art, but also in our everyday lives. Herman Leroy Emmett is a nationally recognized documentary photographer who, with support from Life magazine, began to document a family of migrant workers in 1979. With help from the Migrant Clinic in Hendersonville, North Carolina, Emmett located the Tyndall family, and as Emmett says, from that moment on, we were off and running, chasing the harvest and almighty dollar the best we knew. Emmett's documentation of his time with the Tyndalls was turned into a feature article in Life magazine in 1988. In 1989, Emmett published his book titled Fruit Tramps, which featured short stories and memories that he had collected over the 9 years he spent with the family, as well as a series of photographs, some of which are featured here. These striking images feature the many particulars of a uniquely different American life, including the particulars of a mother and child relationship. In the 4 photographs on display, we see both Tina and Shannon Tyndall in their unique upbringing. Here, Shannon is being bathed by her mother, a seemingly normal mother and child experience that most have on a daily basis. The difference, however, is the fact that instead of a bathtub or shower, Shannon is being bathed in an irrigation canal. Living in a migrant lifestyle, the Tyndall family was only able to afford the experiences that were available to them. This work's aim is not to highlight or look down upon the circumstance, however. Instead, this photograph relates that the motif or concept of mother and child is universal, no matter where you are or what circumstances you are afforded. Familiar relationships are always there, whether it be in the traditional sense, with friends you have considered family, or in an irrigation canal. This love and compassion, deeply rooted since the beginning of time, is among us all and will continue to be so.